connect to the cloud here, and yes, it says that we're recording. This is our healthy hygiene, and we meet on Wednesdays at 5 o'clock Central Standard Time. And Fran, who is kind of coordinating the certification exam for the hygienists, and I decided that maybe it would be a good idea to slowly go through the exam and make sure that people understand the rationale behind the questions and have an opportunity to talk about it. And before we get started on that exam, I want to make sure that everybody knows our 6 o'clock meeting is going to be a different practitioner on myofunctional therapy. And I think it's super important that hygienists get as educated as they can, if not get certified in myofunctional therapy as something to fall back on. Let's say this happens again at some point in time. These myofunctional therapists are working from, teleconferencing. And so they're still able to make an income, whereas traditional hygiene, of course, is not. And then if you're in the office, then you can use this to help the practice out and maybe have it as a side job. I don't know, but I do want to encourage you guys to listen to the lady that we have this evening. Has been doing this for 40 some odd years, so quite a long time. I didn't even know myofunctional was an issue back that long ago. But what I wanted to do is go through each of these questions. And so we're just going to start with question number 1. If you have not gotten the exam yet, you will see that you have a question and then there's a bucket of references that are on here. And I want to have an opportunity to go through and discuss these. So the first one is it's a true or false. The Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry lists mercury as toxic. Now, there shouldn't be any doubt in anybody's mind, but I want to open the discussion for all the different places that mercury is that we're not aware of. When I was in 2nd grade, I had to get hard contacts, and I didn't wear my hard contacts. I would walk out of the house and then sneak my glasses on, and my mom would get all upset. But they really hurt my eyes, and it wasn't so much that they were hard lenses. Come to find out, it was a contact solution. So my mom took me back to the doctor, and he put me in contact solution for sensitive eyes, because redheads with blue eyes obviously are going to be more sensitive to stuff. And that took care of it. Now, and I was able to wear my contacts. Now realize that the contact solution used to have thimerosal in it. They were the first industry to take mercury out because what they were seeing was bloodshot eyes. Of course, we know that there's thimerosal in vaccinations, and most of us have had, I don't even know how many vaccinations. I mean, when I went through hygiene school, they were just coming out with the hepatitis C vaccination, and it was a series of 3, and then the government couldn't decide, would it be 3 or would it be 6? So the school said, well, hell, let's err on the side of caution. Let's have the students do 6. So I got a double whammy of that. And of course, all the other vaccinations that I've had through my lifetime. At one point in time, I didn't want to get pregnant, and I didn't want to take the birth control pill. So I was using a contraceptive called the sponge. It's a little round sponge. You get it wet, you insert it vaginally. The spermicide, mercury. So I've had mercury in all of my orifices. Thank you very much. Do you know that mercury is used to make toilet paper? There are only a couple of brands of toilet paper that don't use mercury in the process. So we still get exposed to mercury on a regular basis, even if it's not. I don't have any amalgams in my mouth at all. I have not had amalgams in my mouth. I might have had a baby tooth that had a mercury filling in it. I can't vouch to say for sure. But my exposure came from the bulk of it, a dental office, where they took out mercury fillings, put in new mercury fillings, of course, in dental hygiene school. And I don't think I polished too many amalgams. who has time to polish amalgams? I mean, we clean people's teeth, but I didn't really make them shiny. I'm sure I had to do that in school. In school, we had to place fillings in typodonts. I don't know why, because in Texas, we can't do amalgams, but in other states you can, and I guess they just wanted us to appreciate what that was like. So we did that, and then we, dug them out of the typodont and chucked it in the trash can, and all against all the rules of everything that you're supposed to do. But I'm open to hearing, I know that some makeup has mercury in it, but I'd love to know if you guys have any other sources that you are aware of that mercury is in. You guys are supposed to unmute.
When you said about the sponge, that was shocked, because I don't want to speak too loud, but yeah, I used it at some point, and that would be the last thing I would think. That's why it's hidden in so many products, and we have to look at everything. It's like the days are gone that you can just buy something and not read the ingredients. This is like, this is nothing to do with mercury, but even with my son, with a certain product, because he's got fatal food allergies, so he has to be careful. So he knows this one product is usually always safe. The one time you don't read it is when they start changing the formulation.
Right.
So that's why you got to read all packets. So going back to mercury.
Well, not even things that we put in our body, but the light bulbs that are the corkscrew light bulbs.
Well, thankfully they stopped that so much. They're not making them as much as they used to.
But do you realize that if you read the box, now for those of you that don't know, I also spent 15 years in emergency medical services as a paramedic while I was still working part-time as a hygienist, just because it's a rush. But there's the box that the light bulbs came in told you that if something happened to the light bulb, you couldn't just throw it in the trash. You either had to take it back to some place like a Lowe's or a Home Depot or a fire station. Well, I promise you, at the fire station, we would have thrown it in the trash, because nobody ever told us that we were supposed to be collecting light bulbs that had mercury in them. And then you've got some of those running shoes that kids wore that have the batteries in them that light up. Those have mercury in them. Then you have, okay, let's talk about dead people. You cremate somebody. Well, what's the most hazardous form of mercury? Is when you put it in a vapor form. So now you're going to heat this dead body. So I don't know what the protocol is. Do they have to take out teeth on somebody before they cremate them? I mean, I'd love to know, because otherwise they're contributing to a massive amount of air pollution with mercury.
When I was in school, I graduated in, don't remember, 91, in expanded duties in Canada, and they said the worst air is around a crematory for mercury poisoning.
Yeah, see, I believe that. And yet we're looking at all these dental offices and what they put out, and we're being the ones that have to put in the mercury separators and everything else. So what does a crematorium have to do? It would be a great project for a hygienist to use as their certification. Here are different places that you get mercury, because I heard about the mercury in toilet paper from Blanche Gruby, and I could not believe it. So I had to get online and start Googling, and sure as hell, they use mercury in making toilet paper. So, I mean, that's just, then it makes you wonder, do they use that same process in a tampon? I don't know. I'm not saying that they do. It just begs the question.
Well, now you question everything, like I was saying before. Now you question everything, because you have to. Because I would never think,
any paper product, really, if it's in toilet paper.
Right. And of course, those of us that ever assisted before AIDS, because that's when we started wearing gloves and everything else. I know I dental assisted while I was going through hygiene school in order to, make ends meet. And of course, you put the mercury in the little vial with the little discs of amalgam, and then you put it in the titration machine, and then you opened it up and you put it in a squeeze cloth, and you squeezed it out, and then you filled the, I don't even know what the carrier, and you handed it to the doctor, and then when there was some left, you tapped it on the side of the counter and it went on the floor, or you put it in the sink.
I'm cringing because I remember doing that, and I used to love to use the squeeze cloth. I used to love the sound, so I'd play with it.
I mean, it's just amazing that
maybe that's why. No,
some of us are just not freaking dead.
but wow.
But there are lots and lots of sources that we are not aware of, and we are the ones that need to be educating our patients about the fact that mercury is toxic, because I know what I was told in school is that it's bound and it's not released. And of course, now we know that that is not true. And I think the other day I was listening to something, and I don't even know what it was, but I loved it. It was an MD who said when she went through medical school, they told her 50% of what you're learning is true and 50% is false. We just don't know which is which. As time goes by, things are going to change. And that is true. I remember the first time that I heard something was contrary to what I heard in school. And of course, I went from high school directly into hygiene school in a program that was a self-paced program that allowed you to go through a quarter system, and you could do 4 years in 2 if you just went year long, and you went through and you went from 7 in the morning until 5 at night, and it was just insane. But that's the program that I went through. And so I thought that when an instructor told you something, it was the gospel, and that the gospel never changed. And then as I got out and I heard something that was completely contradictory to what I learned in school, my first reaction is, well, why would my professor lie to me? Not really understanding that they didn't intentionally lie to me. They just taught me what was known as the truth at the time, and that it's up to you to continue your education because shit changes.
That's right.
So anyway, okay, that's question number 1, and hopefully.
I also had I get very confused, Dr. Dawn, about this whole fish business. You know, should you be eating fish? Should you not be eating fish? How much fish? What fish? You know, the whole mercury contamination from fish.
Yes, and that's really a great question. Fish has mercury in it. Fish oils have mercury in it, unless you get a reputable company like Nordic Natural that checks their fish. Another product that I use a lot of is Secure. It's rebottled by a company called Aminogest, which is an amazing product. You know, the Eskimos, not to totally get off topic, but I am, because I like to educate y'all about stuff. The Eskimos catch their fish and they bury it in the snow. And they have to obviously put a little stick in the ground, because how in the hell will you know where you buried your damn fish? But then they go back after a certain amount of time and they dig it up, and it is affectionately known as stinky fish. It has turned into a jelly, and they slurp it down. It has all the amino acids that you need. It requires no work on the part of the body in order to be broken down and digested. So people who have a difficult time absorbing protein in just their regular food, like the elderly that have a hard time just even eating protein, it is my go-to product. I sell more of that than any product in my office. But that company catches cod fish, which is what it is. You have to make sure that your patient is not allergic to cod, because there's a few random ass people that are. But they check it to make sure that it doesn't have mercury. So
what's the name of the product again, if you don't mind?
Well, it's called Secure, but there's another company that rebottles it and puts a few herbs in it so it doesn't smell. I'm going to tell you a nasty story, and only because it's a bunch of us girls on here, and you know, when I first was introduced to it was probably in about 1994, and I bought a case of it. It got delivered to the office, and nobody knew that it was me that ordered it. And so the dentist's wife stuck it under her desk. At lunch, I was going in there and I was talking to her, and I said, man, I don't mean to be rude, but you need to make sure you don't have a vaginal infection. And she said, what? And I said, I'm telling you, something smells really rank in here.
That's why I love you, Dawn.
And
Oh
she
my
said,
God.
oh my God, I can tell you exactly what it is. This stuff came to the office and we don't know what it is. And I said, oh, I ordered that. Well, there's a company called Energetics,
Right.
and they're out of Atlanta, and they buy the C-Cure, but they put a couple of herbs in there to help mask the odor of the fish. And so I just choose to get that. And I don't sell it for much over what I pay for it. It's expensive if you go online and try to order it. I mean, the patients buy it in bulk from me because when they go online and see how expensive it is, and it is an amazing, it'll make your white blood cell count go up if it's low. It'll make your hemoglobin go up. It'll help an iron if it's because of a low protein. Of course, it'll help your globulin if it's low. I mean, I can fix maybe 12 different things on somebody in their blood work by just taking that. And then the goal is they would reduce, I put them on 6 a day. And if they come back and they look great, then we try 4 a day, then we try 3 a day, so that we keep them on whatever is the fewest number of pills to keep their lab work, because everybody has a different issue with protein. Protein is a very large molecule. If you don't have enough hydrochloric acid, which most people don't after the age of 40, or if they're low in zinc, they don't have enough hydrochloric acid, you can't break down the protein. It therefore gets hung up in the kidney, which will make a uric acid go up, which is why some people end up with gout. If you don't have enough stomach acid, then you can't absorb your B12, and you certainly can't thwart off things like H. pylori. So it prevents me from having to worry about digestive enzymes in some of my patients, like maybe they're gonna go have a cavitation surgery done, and we want to help fill in healthy bone. They have to have enough protein, so it's an awesome product. You just need to make sure that they don't have any issues with cod. So, Syra, that was a great question, and my ADD kicked in, and y'all got.
Thank
I was
you.
going to say too, Dr. Dawn, we use that as well, and it really is a good product for anybody that has protein issues. It really is one of the top things that we use as well.
The C-Cure, is
The
it?
C-Cure.
Okay.
Yeah, C-Cure. Again, the Aminogest is. I don't know if it's cheaper. I have never really priced it. It's just that I really like the difference in the smell, and it can be pretty offensive. You know, it's just like fish oils. A lot of people, I use Nordic Naturals because they make one that is a strawberry. And if you've ever had an issue where you take a fish oil and it repeats, it's gross. And this way, if it repeats, it's a lovely strawberry. And I jokingly tell people that if you fart, it'll be strawberry too.
Well, you have it, so it happens. That's good to know. That's for sure. But I know
Okay, so-
I used to eat albacore tuna, and I stopped because the
Yes,
albacore
all mercury.
a lot of mercury.
Yes.
I won't eat
Yeah.
it anymore.
Sorry, it was a really good question. I mean, your fish is going to be a source of mercury, and so it just depends on what kind you have. Your salmon, of course, is, you know, if it's wild, would be better than your farm. I need to see if somebody is checking in here. I don't know how to do both here. Manage participants.
Yeah, like I love the oily mackerel, but that's high in mercury, right? Mackerel is.
Yes, and you know, if Have you been tested for mercury?
No.
Every hygienist should have traditional lab work done. Don't ever do chelation if you're not methylating properly. Don't ever do it if your BUN is too high or your GFR is too low. And so by too low, I mean less than 60. And don't ever chelate if you're, or even test if your iron is low. So there's a few things that I look at, and if I clear somebody, my preference is still to use DMSA. You can order DMSA online. I think it's called Swiss Bio Health. If you just go online, you can order it on your own. And usually 500 milligrams is taken all at one time. And then you want to collect a 6-hour urine test, and you can set that up through doctor's data. And maybe what we'll do one time is, as a group, we'll pull everybody together and say who wants to do this, and make sure that we look at everybody's labs and make sure that they're okay to do this. But most hygienists are mercury toxic. You know, that is, and dental assistants as well. I honestly think it should be the responsibility of the dental office to monitor the staff and say, okay, you're coming to work in my office. This is where your mercury level was. And we want to make sure that it doesn't go any higher, certainly. And we'd love for it to go lower. And that can happen. There's some great products that are out there. There's a myriad of different products that are out there that are good for chelating. But it's really not something that you should try to do on your own, because I'm going to remind you that when you chelate, when you bind to heavy metals, it also pulls at your iron and your zinc and your magnesium and your calcium. So you can end up creating everything from anemia to cardiac arrhythmias because you get out of whack. So it's just a stupid thing to try to do it on your own without some kind of guidance.
Okay. So oil pulling is considered pretty safe if you don't have amalgams in your mouth, correct? But that's a very mild chelating.
I have never heard that it chelates. Is there somebody that knows different?
Now, the only thing I know about, and it depends on what kind of oil. I know primarily coconut oil pulling, because that's the one that I promote because there's research behind it, because it's got lauric acid and caprylic acid. And lauric acid kills the strep butans, and caprylic, it kills fungi. So,
And it does pull out toxins, but I've never seen it pull out mercury.
Okay.
No. See, now that's another question. Okay, since you just brought that up, there are two factions. One says that using coconut oil for oil pulling or any oil pulling, you should not, because it's going to help pull out mercury. And then the others say, no, that's not true. I mean, there are two.
It pulls it out from your amalgams? Is that what you mean?
Yes, there are two factions.
And you know, that's interesting because there's two schools of thought on chelation. You know, there are MDs that are adamant that they can reduce the mercury load and that they need to do that before the person has their mercury fillings removed, that they can at least help. Whereas there's a whole nother school of thought where the MDs are going, oh, hell no, you're going to be taking it out of the most easily, readily available form is the amalgams right there in the mouth. And then you're going to break down that amalgam, and then it's going to leak, and they're going to end up with decay under there and force them to possibly have maybe a root canal done instead. So that's interesting because there are both schools of thought for that as well. I personally think it's ridiculous to start chelation if you still have mercury fillings.
Without a doubt. I mean, yeah, because how can you clean out a system if you still have the toxic stuff in there? There's no way. There's a I'll talk to you a different time, but there is an article that was written by somebody very close to the IBM, said that you do not oil pull with amalgams.
Yeah, I know Margolis is
no, not even Mark. It's actually Gary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you know, again, those are good.
Oh.
Those would be great projects for hygienists to take on. I remember when you know the foot baths.
Oh yeah.
Anybody, you know, the little ionic foot baths.
Yeah.
Okay, so an EB305, probably oh my gosh, this would have been 2000. I was doing some research on the foot baths. And so I was testing the water before a foot bath was done, and I was testing the water after a foot bath was done. And it was interesting that, you know, it's a nickel thing with a little copper wire that goes around it. So I expected nickel and copper to be higher. But in fact, there was things like thallium that came out and a little bit of mercury, enough that it showed up so the manufacturer would say, oh, it's a way to chelate. Okay, well, that's pretty sad. You know, it'd take forever to do that. But it does pull out a lot of minerals. And I found that there were some chiropractors that were selling this to their patient, and what they were telling their patients to do, I couldn't believe this. Fill your bathtub with water, plug this thing into a wall, and drop it into the bathtub and sit there for 45 minutes and pray to God you don't get electrocuted, and you'll see that the bath water turns different colors. Okay, well, it's too much surface area. It pulls too much out too fast, and that person would be at risk of cardiac arrest because of an electrolyte imbalance.
If he didn't get electrocuted first.
Right, so I ended up doing research for one of the companies, and because of that, every foot bath company out there sent me a foot bath because they wanted me to then test their foot bath to see, you know, how it did. One of the interesting things about that, which I did this as like a double-blind study. You guys know that I use EAV.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tested a lymphatic, lung, large intestine, liver, and kidney point on both sides. That was 10 points. I tested the patient. Where we were seated was a table with a tablecloth over it, and the foot bath was underneath, set up, ready to go. Then the patient put their feet in the water, and I left the room. I had an assistant that came on and either turned on the foot bath or did not. Neither the patient knew nor myself. After about 20 minutes, the assistant came in, took the patient's feet out of the bath, covered the tub so that nobody could see if the water was colored or not, which is a telltale sign, you know, that it was activated. Dried off the patient's feet, and I came in and retested them. And what was interesting was 100% of the time, if they were in an active foot bath, regardless of whether the points were too high or too low, they were all, wherever they were completely balanced. If they were not in a foot bath, they were unchanged. And so then I would offer them, hey, you were sitting in a placebo bath. I'm going to let you sit here for 20 minutes. I don't know what it's going to do to you, but, you know, I want you to have the advantage of whatever and how this thing does. Come to find out, it's really more quantum physics. The foot bath creates an electromagnetic field in the water. Forget the fact that the water turns color, because that means nothing. They will bullshit you and tell you if it's yellow, it's coming from the liver. If it's green, it's coming from if it is white and foamy, it's the lymphatic. That's all just bunk. They just made up crap. There's no documentation behind any of that. But what it does is it trickle charges your body and allows your body to function. You can't use it too long, because if you use it too long again, then you're creating a problem. So what I found was I would put them in the foot bath for about 20 minutes, and then I would just simply give them an electrolyte solution like Emergency, which is buffered ascorbic acid with some minerals in it to help reduce the oxidative effect of pulling out all the metals that you're pulling out. And then what was interesting, it was not so much the change in the water as far as the before and after. That was cool, you know, because I was sending it off to, at that time, King James Lab to see what the difference was. It was what would come out in their urine the next day.
Oh.
So by trickle charging the body, you allowed the body to function as God intended, and the body could start to detoxify slightly on its own. So it's not that it doesn't have value, it's just that it gets abused and overused. And I know chiropractors who have a wall of patients all lined up with their feet in the bath, and they charge them, you know, $50 a session to sit in it, which is, well, I'm not going to say anything about that. But yeah, there are lots of ways that we can help a patient and turn them on to some things that they can do at home. But there always has to be a caution. You know, you can always, don't put it in a bathtub, and get one that's battery operated, not one that gets plugged in, so that you can't get electrocuted. Anyway, okay, so question number 1 took a long time. Hell, we're halfway through a session here. You know, this will take us a year to go through if we're at this pace. The question number 2 says, traditional clinical masks, which are the paper disposable masks that 2 months ago were standard of care in a dental office, okay, offer no protection from exposure to mercury vapor inhalation. Now, hopefully all of us know that that's true, and we also know that now it offers no protection for virus as well. And so I'm in hopes that the standard of care will change. And I think here in Texas, we're cleared to open May 1st, and the only requirement is that a hygienist wear a P100 mask. Syra, do you know if that's different?
No, that's correct. But with Dr. Scott, she's ordered the high vacuum for us.
Right, the snuffleupagus that's going to go in there. And then she's also ordered the cappers. Have you guys seen those?
Yes, they're expensive.
Yes, they're about $1,800.
I texted her this morning because my office was interested in getting them, and she told me $1,800.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow.
And I don't know that that's necessarily standard of care, and I don't know how comfortable they're going to be. So it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, it's cumbersome to wear a mask, and it's hot and it's annoying, and the patient can't see you talk. So you have to either talk louder or slower, or maybe repeat yourself. Of course, stuff fogs up. If you're wearing a face shield as well, it's a lot. So I think part of the value in the capper is, for those of you that have not seen it, it's like a little plastic helmet with a bubble, if you will. And then they have some that come over your shoulders, so it completely covers your, they've got 4 or 5 different kinds. One that just comes to your chin, but there's another one that actually covers your shoulders as well, so that nothing gets on you. But there's a little hole in the back and a tubing that comes in, and a little motor that you put on your waist of your pants. And so a fan generates some air that comes in. So you don't have to wear glasses unless you want to wear loupes. And then that's, I guess, up to you. But you don't have to wear safety glasses. You don't have to wear a mask, so your patient can actually see you talk and you don't feel so claustrophobic. But I don't know what it's going to be like to have something sitting on your head all day long. I don't know how uncomfortable that is going to be.
I hope it's not too heavy, because I know that when Dr. Scott had us wear those masks, she had us wear the amalgam filters, basically. The last week that we were there, it was very hard on the neck.
Yes.
Sitting, and we all had, so maybe we'll just build up those muscles. I don't know.
Yeah, everybody's different. I know me, I can't wear heavy earrings. You know, I have to be, there's some super cute earrings that are out there, but if they're really heavy, it makes my head pull forward.
Right.
And so yeah, it'd be interesting. And we're going to expect feedback from people like your office, because we don't know what the new standard is. I had a doctor in California that already called me upset because of some of the discussion going back and forth on some of these forums that we have, like with the IABDM, who's setting the standards. And so we're not setting the standards, we're just saying there are some options out there. Nobody is saying this is something you have to do. The only thing that I'm aware of that's going to change is that you'll have to wear a better quality mask than what you were wearing before. And like in many of our offices, we already have surgically clean air filters, and there are different types of those things that, again, it's not a standard of care. Biological dentistry goes above the standard.
Always has. That's why we sent out a survey, not to jump on your
No,
thing,
go ahead.
Um, we have a marketing director. I used to be the marketing director, but then I couldn't. So we have one now, and we were on a call last Thursday, and she made a brilliant suggestion. She was, why don't we survey our patients? And so we did. We have a patient base of about 5,000 and change. So I created the Google form, 2 questions. You know, what would make you feel comfortable in a post-COVID dental office? And the second question is, what would make you feel safe in what would make you feel safe to go back into a dental office? And we had a majority, I think it was, we figured it was like 32% of the respondents said, you don't have to do anything, because I trust you guys implicitly. I purposely come to your practice because I know how clean and how many protocols you follow. So, and then other ones are saying, well, it's not real, it's a farce, it's fake news, you know, whatever. So, which is fine. You know, you're going to have your full gamut. And then others are like, I'm not leaving my house until 2050. So, you know,
When my toilet paper runs out.
when your toilet paper runs out, exactly. But, you know, you got to run your gamut. But it was nice to see, because there was another company that we consult with, and a couple of their doctors send out surveys to their patients too, and we're like, you know, about 32% of our patients are saying, you know, and we're like kind of disappointed that it was only 32, and she's like, are you kidding? Nobody is getting responses like that ever, because then those are conventional offices, because we always have practiced the highest standard of care. Now anything we do is going to be equate that and more. So that's why people come to us, and that's why we were saying even last week, you know, the standard of care in biological dentistry is just so high to begin with. You know, we're just piling on top all the protocols. So, and it's hard to set a standard. Everybody, you can make a general recommendation, just like the ADA makes a recommendation. In my state is the NJDA. They make a recommendation. It's not a mandate. The mandates are made by the state. So the recommendations are to follow these protocols. I mean, we can come out with some kind of recommendation, but it's not going to be anything more than we're already doing. The use of the ozone. I mean, I really liked Dr. Mulika's presentation last week about the pre-rinse. The ADA is saying use the peroxide, you know, for like 20 seconds or 30 seconds or something like that. And then he's saying using the oxygen ozone for a minute. That makes so much more sense. And then having the patient on the insufflation prior to treatment. These are things that we've been kind of doing already. You're just going to do it a little more. And that's why practicing the way we do, we're already there.
And I'm going to encourage, I know this is probably the 3rd time that I have said this, but I'm probably going to beat a dead horse. You guys need to not wear your scrubs to the office. Just wear, I don't care if you wear sweats to the office or bathing suit to the office, but then you put on your scrubs there. You don't leave for lunch in your scrubs. Think of it as a surgical nurse would never just leave. Well, actually they do. They're not supposed to, but we're trying to create a safer environment, not only for the patients, but think of your family. So I'm going to get back to in EMS. You know, oh my gosh, you know, we have washing machines at the fire stations, and you take your uniform, you wear your uniform to the station, and then if it gets all bloody and everything, you're supposed to take it off and put another one on. But honestly, people got so lazy, you just wear a grubby old dirty uniform all day long, unless it was completely gross, and then you would take it home and you would wash it. All that bloodborne pathogen with your children's clothes in your washing machine. So again, we're going to try to remind everybody that we're at a higher standard. You take your scrubs to the office and you wash them at the office, or a launder service has to come in and take those uniforms away don't wear your scrubs home and wash them with your family's clothing. It's just not a smart thing to do. Now, I know, and I will constantly refer to Teresa's office. Teresa Scott is the current president, very active in social media and Facebook groups. And what she's doing is she's made nun suits. That's what I call them. She got some black tablecloth material that doesn't wrinkle and made something that kind of goes up high and covers your arms, and it looks like a nun. It looks like a habit. And the only thing it doesn't have is the thing that goes up on top and then the flying nun wings that are on there. But her goal is that each of the staff members will wear one per patient. And if she's got to go in and change to see a hygiene patient and there's no particulate or aerosol that got on that scrub, she's going to drop it in a bin with an ozone tube in there and ozonate that. But everything else that ends up with any kind of particulate on it whatsoever will get laundered. So she ordered 60 of them just to make it through a day for the staff. So it's things like that that are going to create changes, because those paper ones that we wear, you're not supposed to put a paper gown on and then wear it all day for every patient that you see. But that is what we do. We think of it as protection for us and seem to forget that bugs and cooties are falling off of it. You're brushing up with your arm on somebody's face. Heck, as careful as I would try, my breast would end up in some guy's ear. So, you know, you're rubbing up on people is the fact of the matter. And if we're trying to create a different standard, then we're going to have to think about even the clothing that we wear. And maybe it's going to take longer for us to clean a room in between patients and turn it over, or we'll have to hire a grunt office worker that does nothing but go from room to room to room and do the ozonating of the gowns, wash the gowns, scrub down the rooms so that we can turn it over. Or maybe a hygienist is working 2 rooms so that a room can have the air scrubber turned on for 15 minutes and run to completely clean that room, which is, that costs money to have a room just sitting there. But I don't know what we're going to do.
This is, because so many people are coming out with stuff, but this guy, this dentist came out with this. It's a Smile Perfected. He made a few videos and he came up with a couple of protocols, and it just makes a lot of sense. Here, he's saying only see 5 hygiene patients per day, 1 every 90 minutes, that you're giving time in between. And he's also recommending, it's somebody, dental team, it's a sterilization tech. You can call it whatever you want, sterilization tech. This is whether it be an assistant or whomever, and that's all they do. They're turning the rooms over, they're cleaning the door handles of the bathroom, the front door. They're just constantly, you know, bringing patients in, and constantly just all they're doing is disinfecting and sterilizing and turning over rooms in all high touch areas. So it's like really gonna have to change, and that's what actually we're implementing. We're gonna have somebody that just does that too. I was in the office yesterday, and that's what I mean, God, I haven't done clinical in about almost close to 2 years. And it was good to be back on the floor again. And to be honest with you, it was like riding a bike. And I was running like in circle, and I'm just wiping everything out and turning rooms. And I'm like, this is hard. This is hard. This is not easy. I forgot how hard it is. And to see how one person dedicated it, it's going to be exhausting.
It is. And, you know, and we have to be mindful of trying to stay green. So if you can buy, you know, a dozen washcloths, and you can use that to clean down a room and wipe down all the surfaces, and then you can just constantly have laundry going all day long instead of contributing to more plastic. And we already have to use a lot of plastic just in all of our PPE that we have, but anytime we can try to be friendly to the environment, we need to think about those options. So I know that some offices are even getting foot coverings, or that they're having special shoes that you will wear only in the office, whether it's a Croc that you would wear, and you know, so that you're not walking outside and then bringing stuff in. Again, we're not setting standards. That's not our goal. We suggest guidelines, but I think it's just smart in biological dentistry and hygiene. I'm going to make a comment here before we close for this evening, because I do have the next Zoom call, and I have to get that speaker on. Very interesting, the dynamics from state to state. I spoke with a dentist on the West Coast who said they had an emergency patient that came in, and the dental assistant said, "I'm not comfortable." And the dentist said, "What do you mean?" I'm just not comfortable. I don't know if this person is sick or not." And the assistant left. And the dentist called and said, what happened? I don't have to work under these conditions, and I'm just not sure about whether I want to work or not. And so I'm not sure whether I even want to be a dental assistant. I said, wow, okay, that's different, because our dental assistants are chomping at the bit to get a paycheck and come back to work. And she said that dental assistants on the West Coast are like gold, and that they are the ones saying, this is what you will have before my ass walks in an office.
Yeah.
Whereas,
I'm sure, Karen, you see it too on some of our hygiene pages. The hygienists are saying the same thing.
you know, and then you've got others that are just going, let me get back to work and let me get a paycheck. Yes, there's some things that I'm going to be smart. I'm going to wear a mask. I'm going to do some basic things, but you don't have to give me the moon. Just give me a paycheck.
Right. And also, in our world, it's, you know, I think we have a different mindset. Like, for example, we all know that I had cancer last year, okay? And that didn't scare me so much. Either it was just the treatment that really messed me up. But this scares me even less. You know why? Because I know I'm trying to do the right thing for myself and boosting my immune system, taking all my supplements. I'm trying to live as clean as I can. And it's almost as if I almost, and it's strange, so I got to be careful what you wish for, because it's like, if I'm ever exposed, it's okay, because then my body's got to learn how to fight stuff. So, you know, I can't live in a bubble the rest of my life, because then I'm going to be so, first of all, that's just not normal. It's not healthy. But how is my body supposed to respond to anything if I just don't expose it? But again, doing it in a smart, safe way. But in the biological world, in a holistic world, that's what we know, is just boosting your immune system. And there's actually a graphic, I think I even mentioned it last week. People who have their D3 over 30%, they're predominantly like 94%. I think I have it here, 94% of the patients with 30 and over of D3, of vitamin D. Their 94 was like, had very mild to no symptoms. Anybody who had less vitamin D level had much worse symptoms.
Yeah,
So,
and ideal would be between 60 and 80.
Exactly.
So if you're looking at your patients and you ask them, that's just a good guideline for you to use. Hey, if you haven't had a D3 level checked, you can go to any time lab, or you can go to your primary care and ask them to run a D3 on you. And for bone health, we would love for you to see that your D is between 60 and 80, because you can overdose on it. But okay, well,
that's usually
we got through question 2.
I just wanted to make a quick comment, Dr. Dawn, that
Absolutely.
I will say that I've been on the fence also about going back to work, you know, because I know some of the offices I used to temp at before, I would not even think about going back to temping, but I feel very safe with Dr. Scott, because I know she goes above and beyond, you know.
Yeah.
So,
You guys are really setting more than gold standards. It's hard for most offices to compete with that. And actually, it's become intimidating for some offices to feel like they're not as good as what Dr. Scott is putting out there because she's so vocal. So yes, you are incredibly blessed.
Right. So if she says stay home another week, I'm happy to stay home another week. I'll go when she's ready to have me, because I know that I will be safe and that my patients will be safe and we'll all be safe.
Yeah.
So
Okay, well, I'm going to finish the recording for today, if I can figure out how to do that here. So yes, pause, stop.